Welcome to the 2020 School Board Candidates Forum. We are thankful for the audience that's here, the audience that's home, and of course for the candidates for being here. My name is Bob Dubois, I'm President of the Noblesville Chamber of Commerce. We're happy to be a partner in hosting tonight. We have a few housekeeping items, and then I will step out of the way. One is we are going to ask for those in the audience to maintain social distance, wear your masks. There are restrooms outside if need be. And if you're at home, you can do what you want. Today we're webcast courtesy of Hamilton County Television, and we're very appreciative of their partnership that they have with many of our events. It will also be re-webcast on demand as needed on their website. Today we want to learn a little bit more about the candidates and what drove them to run for public office here. If tonight is not enough for you to learn about the candidates, we are also making available written answers to questions that we posed to the candidates that we felt were important to the Noblesville business community, and they will be posted online on our Noblesville Chamber website beginning tomorrow, along with some short videos as well. We want to give you every opportunity to learn about these fine people that are running for office. If you have questions that you want asked of the candidates tonight, not all the questions can be asked, but we'll try to get to several of them. We're going to ask that you do it one of two ways. We ask you to email info@noblesvillechamber.com, or you may text your question to this number, 317-764-0282. And that will be available just tonight, October 12th. So if you're watching the rerun at home, please do not text me at 2 in the morning with your question, because it will not get answered. But we're thrilled to have Thorpe Miller, one of our chamber board members, here as our moderator tonight. Thorpe is with Indiana Members Credit Union. He's the Vice President of Marketing and Business Development. He has got had a great career and going strong. Member of our board of directors, as I mentioned, and of course a Noblesville resident. We'll ask you to all be gentle with our moderator tonight. We've seen some other examples of it recently. So Thorpe, I'm going to give the rest of the evening to you. I'll be sitting here in the front seat if need be.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Again, to emphasize Bob's comments, 27-year resident of Noblesville, 3 kids that have gone through the school system, 2 that are out, and 1 that's still in. So very familiar with Noblesville schools and the city of Noblesville, and happy to be a part of tonight's event. One of the things that you'll notice in Bob's intro did not include is professional moderator. So please bear with me a little bit on that. We went back and forth a little bit and finally connected on what Bob was trying to reach me for the day after the last presidential debate, and he was asking me to be the moderator of this one. So,
great timing.
We'll see how that goes. Hopefully that's good. And I'm not a professional moderator, but I have been blessed to coach many of the Noblesville sports teams here with my kids as they grew up. So probably some skills that are involved there. Thank you again. Just to give you a quick rundown again, tonight is a debate. Not a debate, is a candidates forum. So we're going to just walk through and ask questions and give each candidate a chance to respond. This is a chance to get to know our neighbors who seek to represent us on the Noblesville School Board. So thank you for being here and being interested enough to want to learn what the candidates' positions are and who's going to best represent us on that level. We are on a schedule. We do have a lot of candidates, so we will ask everyone to adhere to the scheduled time. We ask the audience to refrain from clapping or commenting during the program, again, for sake of time. All of the candidates were invited. There are 9 candidates that are running for school board. 2 were unable to attend, so we do have 7 of the 9 here. The format today will be 1-minute opening statements. We'll have rounds of questions that were developed by the Chamber's business advocacy team and other Chamber volunteers. Written questions from the public will be included, as Bob mentioned earlier, if you would like to submit those via email or text. And 1.5-minute closing statements as well. Bob will be on the front row to let you know your timing and where you're at. We've kind of gone through that with the candidates, so they're aware. For sake of time, we will not introduce the candidates specifically here. We will let the candidates introduce themselves with their opening statements. So with that, we will jump right in. We did a random selection for the order of opening statements, and Laura Alerding is going first.
Thank you. My name is Laura Alerding, and I am a business owner in Noblesville. I've been a business owner since 2004. My business leads me to meet other business owners and sole proprietors and people that work for Fortune 500 companies. And with working with these people, I'm able to solve their marketing problems and do it within budget and the time restrictions that they have. I'm also a wife, mother, stepmother, and grandmother of 18. So I've seen a variety of schools that they've attended. And I bring a different perspective, having watched them grow and go to different schools. I'm also active in the community. I am an elected precinct committeeman, so I understand how election day works. We help to staff the polling locations with poll workers. So I thank you for being here.
Thank you, Laura. Leigh Hamer will be second.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the Chamber for hosting tonight's event and allowing our community to hear directly from the candidates. I think it's so critical. I'm sitting up here this evening for my kids and yours. We need a school board filled with members who are dedicated to working hard on hard issues. The school board has always served a very important and critical role in our community, ensuring that Noblesville schools are the best. We need board members who will not only focus on our future, but focus on shaping the future of our schools and our children. This election, when you cast your ballot, you are going to be asked to choose 3 of us. I'm using tonight the same way you are. I'm evaluating the candidates to see who I think will serve our schools and my kids the best. I am honored to be endorsed by the Noblesville Teachers Forum. As a board member, I will continue to ensure every child is given equal access to a free, safe, and welcoming learning environment. My personal and professional experiences have equipped me with the skills and empathy to serve Noblesville well. I've built a 15-year career in marketing and communications while maintaining a commitment to community service, serving on multiple boards that have had a mission of helping children and families. Thank you.
Evan Elliott is third.
Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Evan Elliott, and I entered the district in 1997 as a first grader at North Elementary, and so it is truly humbling to sit here in front of you today. In 2011, Annetta Petty hired me as the Director of Speech and Debate at Noblesville High School, and little did she know that we would go on to build a top 30 program out of over 4,000 in the nation. I have a passion for working with students, and I look to bring that passion to the school board here in Noblesville. This race is important to me because I'm the only Noblesville graduate running, and I think that is such an important voice to have on our school board. To know what it's like to be in the classroom, to work with our dedicated faculty and staff who are in our buildings every day, and to understand what it's like to use the technology that we're using in the classrooms right now. We have such a great slate of candidates running for school board, and I just want to make sure that we preserve quality education for our students. Thank you very much.
Christi Crosser.
Hi, my name is Christi Crosser, and my husband Greg and I have lived in Noblesville for 20 years. I have a son, Ash, who is a 2017 Noblesville graduate, and he is at Marian University. My daughter is a 2020 graduate and is at Butler University. My husband and I own a business in downtown Noblesville. When asked what I liked most about Noblesville schools is I like the sense of community that the schools bring to Noblesville. As my position of the board chair of the chamber for my third and last year, I feel like with my community involvement that I can bring the community, businesses, schools, and the city together to make our community even stronger. Thank you.
Stephanie Lambert.
Hi. Thank you so much to the Chamber for hosting this event tonight. Thank you to all of you who came out to do your due diligence and for those who are watching at home. Again, my name is Stephanie Lambert. I have 3 children in the district. I have a sophomore at the high school, an 8th grader at West, and a 4th grader at Noble Crossing Elementary. My husband Nate and I have been married for 18 years. Today's actually our anniversary. So we're celebrating at the Forum. And we've lived in Noblesville for 9 years. I have 3 main reasons why I'm running for school board. The first is I have a strong desire to support our teachers. I think that they are the lifeblood of our schools, and I think it's important that Noblesville Schools recruits and retains great teachers, and that will be a priority of mine if I end up on the school board. Also, I want our schools to keep leading the way in mental health and school security because I believe when students feel safe and connected, they make better learners. And also, I have a desire for success for every student. No 2 students have the same idea of what success looks like, whether that be a trade school, college, the armed forces, or the workforce. I want to make sure that every student that leaves Noblesville High School feels prepared for success. Thank you.
Willie Haile.
Hello, everyone. I'm Willie Haile. I've been a resident of Noblesville for 4 years. I grew up as a son of a United States Marine Corps Sergeant Major, and I've lived literally all over the world. And I currently serve as a robotics engineer, so I have a very transient career path as well. My family and I moved here November 1st, 2016, and I can honestly say there's no place we'd rather be than in Noblesville, Indiana. We love it here. And I'd like to lend all of my experiences, both worldwide and currently here, serving as a project manager for a robotics company and reaching out for job fairs and holding job fairs for local universities. I'm going to use those experiences to help our school district to see what we're doing well and look for areas in which we can improve. Thank you, everyone. Thanks to the Chamber, and go Millers.
And Carl Johnson.
Hi, everybody. I'm Carl Johnson. I'm serving on the Noblesville School Board these past 4 years, and it's been an amazing journey of servant leadership. As board president, the past 2 years, I've worked with our community leaders in a unique position to provide a foundation of knowledge and experienced leadership that's important, I think, to the success of our schools. As a 16-year resident, father of 4 school-age children, and the husband of a Noblesville teacher, I'm very invested in Noblesville schools. I have a heart for kids and teachers and understanding of their needs that comes from personal involvement. My school spirit runs very deep. I believe in the purpose, process, and the people behind the amazing environment we provide at Noblesville Schools for education. As a father of students involved in performing arts and athletics, I'm a big fan of the opportunities we provide both in the classroom and outside. I'm grateful and honored for the opportunity of leading our district through the challenges and accomplishments these past 4 years. Our schools are a source of community pride, and I'm devoted to that success. I look forward to continuing to serve you and appreciate your vote.
All right. Thank you, everyone. With that, we will dive right into questions that we have predetermined for you all. The order will be alphabetical, so we will start back with Laura Alerding will be first, and then everyone will have an opportunity to respond as we go. First question is, what are your top 3 priorities you look to address as a school board member?
The top 3 priorities that I would like to address as a school board member would be, first of all, quality. Quality of education is probably the top priority. I think when we have the very best education available, these students will go on to become very contributing citizens to our community. They will benefit the workforce development and will bring in businesses to our community. Secondly is transparency. I think the community has a vested interest in the schools because of the outcome of these students becoming contributing citizens. And they also want to know how the budget is spent. And last is safety. Safety, since May of 2018, there have been about 50 new safety measures implemented for Noblesville schools, and I'd want to make sure that those are continued. Thank you.
Christi, same question.
Okay. My first is that to continue Noblesville Schools' proactive approach with the COVID response, with virtual learning and in-person learning. I think the schools have done a really great job as far as having both types of learning for all students, and I think that that's something that the schools need to continue to be proactive and not reactive. The second is to increase and maintain state funding for the schools and teachers alike. And the third is very important to me. It's continue diversity, equity, and inclusion work that the Noblesville schools have started with NDC. The relationship with the Noblesville Diversity Coalition and Noblesville Schools and the Chamber is a great partnership, and that partnership needs to continue for years to come.
Evan Elliott.
Well, my first priority is funding, and that's because funding controls everything else. Recently, in Dr. Niedermeyer's State of the Schools, she shared with us that our enrollment is down, possibly in part due to the COVID restrictions that we're going through. We are already set to lose about $850,000 in funding because of a lack of per pupil funds. And we are also on track, if we do not secure further state funding, to lose about $5.5 million. We cannot let that happen. I will be an ardent advocate for our students and teachers and making sure that they have the resources necessary to do what they need to do in the classroom. And third, I want to make sure that we maintain a safe environment for everyone. Our custodial staff is doing an incredible job of sanitizing our surfaces. Cafeteria workers have had to step up and make sure that students have prepackaged meals. It is taking all of us to get through this, and we need to make sure that we maintain that environment.
Willie Haile.
So my main visions for the school district are to maintain a healthy and balanced allocation of funds. We want to attract and retain, but most importantly, support our teachers and district employees. We want to create and cultivate a really strong and applicable curriculum for our students. And our overall goal, we want to teach and strengthen our students for success beyond Noblesville schools. The way we do that is to not only teach and teach them what to learn, but we teach them how to learn. All of these have to be working in tandem for us to have a bright and successful future in Noblesville schools. Thank you.
Leigh Hamer.
Thank you. I would agree with everyone's comments so far. Certainly budget leads the way. It sounds silly, but the top two priorities of mine are budget and budget. It is budget near term and then budget long term, because in the near term, as Evan outlined, we do have a shortfall coming. There is no guarantee what's going to happen with the virtual learners and the funding that we potentially will have a gap to deal with. That will be the issue for this board to address and address swiftly. Luck is not a thing. Fortune favors the prepared, and our board needs to be prepared for the worst case. So we need to have a near-term funding solution. Then we also need to quickly look at what our long-term solution is. Our CFO, who I've met with, is going after some CARES funding. That also has not come through. So we need to make sure that we're in a good state for when we have to go through bargaining with our teachers next September. That's a critical point. We need to make sure that we are securing and retaining the best teachers. A lot has been thrown on their plate every school year, but especially this one. So we need to make sure that we're in a good position to show them that they're valued and retain the best educators.
Carl Johnson?
We talked a lot about funding and safety. I'm actually going to go to a couple other things. Continued advancements in education. So we all know that not all of our educators and all of our learners learn at the same rate. That's a big deal in our school system, and it's how we compete. We want to make sure that we're providing resources for the wide range of challenges. Also, continuing to foster engagement and coordination between our schools and our community. This is a strong suit of ours, and as I referenced in my video, there are things that we're doing in our district to reach out to people beyond just those that walk through our doors. Also, creating exposure for our learners. It's a priority for our educators to provide both children and adults, students, teachers, with the opportunities to best create knowledgeable experiences for them. And that is something that as a school district propels us into the future and helps us create citizens that can react to one another and talk to each other in a culturally appropriate way.
Stephanie Lambert?
So I have already touched on 3 of my main platforms for running for school board, but I'll elaborate a little more. My first is supporting teachers and retaining and recruiting high-quality teachers. We have a national teacher shortage, and so I want to make sure, for many reasons, that we keep the current teachers that we have. Like Ms. Hamer mentioned about COVID, our teachers are under more stress now than ever before, having to do an online platform and a face-to-face teaching situation. So we have to make sure that the current teachers that we have, that their mental health needs are being met, and that they are able to keep teaching our kids successfully. For mental health and school security, I've been an advocate for both of those for the last couple of years, since May 25th. I have been a part of a parent group that has advocated at the State House for better mental health and school security for Noblesville schools. And also for the Success for Every Student. Something that I think is wonderful and important is our collaboration with the J. Everett Light Center for vocational training and our collaboration with Ivy Tech and the internship program that the high school has is a wonderful on-the-job work experience. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Our second question will start with Christi Crosser. Question number 2. The Current reported today that Noblesville schools may face a $5.5 million shortfall if the pandemic continues and students are required to attend classes for more than 50% of their time come February. How would you prioritize cuts or budget reductions if they are required?
Well, that's a good question. Let's hope that doesn't happen. I guess that's a tough question with not serving on the school board currently, not really seeing the budget itself. I can say that one of the things that I guess would have to be cut, it would have to be cut across the board. And I guess in all programs, you wouldn't, you hear so many times about arts being cut or, music, art programs. And I think it would be important to be able to look across the board and cut in different areas. But again, it's really hard to say without being on the school board and seeing the budget.
I would echo most of your sentiments, Christi. Without having all of the information in front of us, it is very difficult to make a determination based on theory. What I will say is we need to keep our students and teachers at the forefront, and we're going to have to make a lot of tough decisions in the days ahead about physical buildings, whether we continue to build, whether we're looking at more virtual environments, whether we're hosting more meetings virtually. This is not something that's just going to go away. There are going to be other things like this, like COVID. And we have to have a plan in place for future happenings such as these. And that's going to involve a lot of real-world communication and sitting down at the table with everybody and making sure everyone's voice is heard and that we're processing all the information as it becomes available to us.
Willie?
So we first want to analyze exactly what the reasons for the deficits are. We know the COVID-19 response is one of them. If there's anything within our control in the district, we need to eliminate those barriers immediately. Anything outside of our control, we want our board to lobby to our state legislative and legislators and look to see what we can do differently. What laws can be amended? Who can we talk to make sure that we are getting the correct allocation of funds in the district? And then after those decisions are made, I echo Evan and Christi's sentiments there. It has to be a united effort. We have to have everyone's input from the district, transparency in the community, and those tough decisions have to be made, and we all have to come to the table, but only in a unified manner. Thank you.
Leigh?
This is a difficult question, but I think it's a reality that we have to face. We can't wait for this to occur. We have to be prepared. This is why I say we have to look at the near-term budget. We have to be proactive and prepare for that worst-case scenario. If there are budget cuts, which is likely, I think that my background of 15 years in marketing and communications and fundraising and working with nonprofits would position me well to help us focus on cutting the areas where we can find alternative funding. One of the roles of the board is to engage our community. Noblesville in particular, but also the surrounding area has had a boon in entrepreneurship, tech companies, and those that are willing to partner with local organizations. Many of these I have personal relationships with, and I would look to them to help us offset costs. I would also prioritize our STEM and STEAM education. I think the arts and music are critical to a well-rounded student and have been shown to improve their performance in other areas, as well as their social and emotional learning capabilities. So I would look to areas in the budget where we can get creative. And like Willie said, we need to all work together. That extends into our community and our business relationships. They have a vested interest in making sure Noblesville is a sought-after place for families to live and reside. Thank you.
Carl?
This is a similar question that the Teachers Forum asked. The response I gave to them, I can understand the concerns for that question and why it's posed, even the fear behind it. But the reality of the fact is the school board members do not decide what classes are cut. That is the superintendent's decision. And we have a motto amongst the school leadership: there should be no surprises. So for a school board member to make a decision like that without consulting the superintendent would be shocking. And you can imagine if you were the teacher whose class was announced tonight, that might be a little shocking as well. Lee's right. We have a lot of creative people in Noblesville. We have not only the internship program that you mentioned, but those forces would be rallied. It's important to know that the state legislature also has a role in this, as well as the Board of Education. So they did give us some welcome news for the fall date for the count, but that same situation comes up in February. And so we will be relying on them to make law adjustments at the state legislature level, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Stephanie?
So I agree that I think it's important to lobby with the state legislature to make sure that our virtual kids aren't getting funded at 85%. They need to be funded at 100% because that's what makes sense. COVID is a brand new thing that has never been experienced before, and the state legislator needs to understand that and fund our students 100%. Working with the superintendent, because Carl's right, and working with the superintendent about what cuts I would support or not support, I would look at the budget and make sure that I was cutting or supporting cuts where the least amount of impact educational wise would be. So in my opinion, that would be not cutting people, not cutting teachers. So potentially supplies or streamlining processes would be something that I would be more in favor of cutting than actually cutting our staff or our teachers. Thanks.
And Laura?
I read the current article, which featured the CFO, Robin Phelps, and she did say that any shortfall wouldn't be affected in this current budget. But I too think that it's hard to speculate on what to cut when you don't have any data or facts to go by. But I also think that if there was a shortfall, that relying on our business partners, our business leaders in the community would likely want to step up and help. And I have some contacts in the community with some of the leaders, and I would exercise those relationships to see how they could help us.
Thank you, everyone. Question number 3. Evan, you will lead off on this question. Question number 3, has been recent debate on how our nation's history is presented and taught in our schools. What is your view on teaching a more comprehensive and complete depiction of our nation's history?
Thank you for the question. Curriculum has been a very hot button issue in this election cycle. In fact, I've received more questions that relate to curriculum than even the COVID epidemic that we are going through right now. Here is my belief. Students need a real-world education in the classroom. There are going to be ideas that we never agree with. We're going to have disagreements. Different philosophers who write our curriculum are going to have disagreements. I am a real estate broker by trade, and we have some very heated conversations sometimes. Students need to be prepared for those heated conversations. Through our speech and debate avenue, I've had the opportunity to teach students how to handle debate civilly and appropriately. And I think that is something that I can bring to the table when discussing curriculum. We also need a curriculum review committee of diverse members. And that includes people of all races and backgrounds who can provide their input on our curriculum and make sure that we're providing a comprehensive education.
So I believe it's imperative that we teach a more comprehensive history of our nation in our schools. However, not at the expense of the rich history that we already teach in our schools. We want to recognize the courageous acts and the historical figures that we currently are omitting from the history books, but we don't want to eliminate those courageous acts and the historical figures that we currently learn about. I think it's really important for our students to understand our nation's history as a whole and our nation's history and how it plays a part in international history as well. So when they leave Noblesville schools, they have an unparalleled knowledge and a certain pride about themselves and about their history, so they can have success no matter where they go beyond Noblesville schools. Thanks.
The thing that I'm most proud of as a parent of 3 Noblesville students is that in Noblesville, there's a saying, all means all. And that permeates every level of the education process. It's how the teachers engage with the students and make sure that each and every one of them is cared for and seen and appreciated. Now, as Carl said, the school board does not directly set curriculum, but the question is important because the school board would potentially have the opportunity to set policy and certainly influence our community as community leaders. I believe that knowledge is so much more powerful than ignorance, and we cannot shield our children from the very real and sometimes horrific history and the facts. It needs to be age appropriate. It needs to be decided by people who have spent and dedicated their lives to early education and know it better than me, and those are the folks that I would defer to decide how and when and what is taught. But I support the full and factual history being taught to our children.
So we're not always going to agree. I can tell you as a matter of fact that even the administration in our schools sits behind closed doors at times and we hash things out. So, but we do our kids a disservice if we don't expose them to all aspects of our history. I am a very large proponent of the balance in that history, providing all aspects of that. But what I really appreciate is the inquiry-based learning we have that allows kids to ask questions. So our goal is you provide an issue for them to look at, and then you let the kids come up with the questions that they normally and naturally would come up with, and then you release them to go find those answers. The teacher's there to guide them, and as Evan said, we want to have people on those committees that are good at packaging that together. I believe context is very important as well. It's easy for us today in our culture to look back on previous times and think we know it all. But I really believe in teaching the kids context and understanding the reasons why things happened, not just what happened.
So I think that Noblesville Schools' motto of teaching kids how to think and not what to think applies here. I think giving a realistic view of our nation's history is important while preserving our patriotism and also teaching about our American heroes. I think they are not mutually exclusive, and you can do both at the same time. I think it's important to teach kids how to be critical thinkers, not to memorize facts in a history book, but to expose them to all different types of history, and they can draw their own conclusions from that. My daughter, actually, who is in 8th grade at West, did a project, the 1619 project that I think we are all referring to. And I asked her about it and had her bring home the essay, and I read it. And it was a very inspirational depiction about how enslaved people helped build our country. And she had to draw a picture from a quote. And I thought it was a really neat thing, and it's something that I would fully support. So thank you.
Okay. Our nation's history should be taught in a comprehensive manner. So we need to know all of the facts with regard to our history, the good and the bad. In fact, I recently spoke with a parent in the community, and he said, quote, "I want them to learn our nation's history, including the good, bad, and ugly, without bias." And I personally would like all students to be able to pass a civics class prior to high school graduation. I want them to have a solid understanding of our founding fathers, the branches of government, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Electoral College. Thank you.
I think this is a very important topic. I think that history in schools needs to be very truthful. It needs to be accurate. It needs to be such that our kids, no matter what grade level, learn from our experience and our past and our history. They learn the good, the bad. They can celebrate the things that are, have gone right with this country. But I think it's really important that all the facts are laid out for all the students at an age-appropriate level. And then I think that as they grow, then hopefully that will help shape our future if they know how the history has been in this country.
Willie will lead us off on question number 4. How would you rate the Noblesville Schools' response to COVID-19? What, if anything, would you change?
I think the district's response to COVID-19 has been absolutely stellar. I've had the opportunity to talk to people all over the state and all over the country, and the options that we've been able to offer our parents and our teachers and our students has been outstanding, just phenomenal. There's been some challenges. I know some teachers had just about a 4 days notice that they were going to teach. And that's really important that we keep that in mind. Moving forward, we want to honor and support and recognize those heroes, those unsung heroes of every day, the teachers that have gone out of their way to set up Zoom calls, to be in person with the students who have their own families that they need to deal with and their own set of circumstances to deal with the COVID-19 as well. So I think we need to, going forward, we need to make sure we are supporting our teachers with some kind of compensation. Thank you.
I think that Noblesville did the best that they could with what they had and what information they had at each interval. I'm speaking as a parent who dealt with 3 kids coming home in March, and then the uncertainty, right, and trying to plan your life and work full time. I had the opportunity and reached out to the superintendent and met with numerous members of her cabinet and talked to them to get a better understanding of what happened below the waterline that parents didn't get to see. And I understood that there wasn't a lot of information forthcoming from the state level down, and that created a lot of delays and I think frustrations as I talked to my family friends and, other moms in the neighborhood, and we wanted more information. And I think that what has given me a lot of hope is that in talking with the superintendent and her staff, they have welcomed any and all constructive criticism. They are looking at what didn't work and how they can learn from it. And that gives me hope. That makes me more energized to serve on this board and collaborate with that team. I think, as Willie pointed out, teachers are doing a phenomenal job on blended learning. And there is an opportunity for us to really learn from this and see how we improve it. How do we improve virtual learning when there are snow days or when a child needs to have a long leave? Thank you.
So I'm a bit biased on this one, but I think we did a great job. I say that not just as a school representative, but it's amazing the number of people that reached out to me nationwide and asked, would you mind if we copied your plan? We've been on your website, your FAQs, things that you're doing. And when you continually hear that, you realize you must have gotten something right. People have stopped us in stores, restaurants, thanked us. One of the things I think is really important to point out is there are a lot of competing interests in our school system. Not only do you have the kids and the students, you have bus drivers, you have food service workers, you have the parents who are trying to work at the same time that they are schooling their kids. I have a 6th grader, and so my schedule rearranged to be home every other day, so I'm living that along with everyone. But I think there are some areas we can improve. A couple of those things that are up for discussion right now are just the length of the school day, making sure that subjects are taught in the elementary schools. What does our middle school environment look like? Can it get closer to 100%? And then just the quality implementation of our virtual system. There's only so many we can choose from for that. We all know that that can stand some improvement. But I think overall, we've done a really great job.
So there were no guarantees on how going back to school was going to play out for our children. Luckily, things have so far been pretty successful, and I contribute that to the thoughtful, organized way that the schools approached the kids going back. They had a planning committee that got together and really looked at every single step along the way to make sure that our kids would be safe. I personally believe that face-to-face instruction is the best kind of instruction, so getting our kids back in the classrooms was very important to me. As a substitute teacher, I had the opportunity to decide whether or not I was going to walk back into the building, but I sent my 3 kids back to school, and I asked all of our teachers to go back to school, so I put on my mask and I signed up to be a permanent sub every Wednesday in the schools. So I think that our schools have done an amazing job. On one of the first days that I was back, we were trying to figure out, all of the teachers were getting together in the hallway, and we were trying to figure out how to do carpool pickup, and it was honestly like watching NASA put a man on the moon. It was the most coordinated, amazing thing I have ever seen, and I really wanted to get on my knees and tell them how grateful I was for what they were doing for our kids. Thank you.
Yes, I think that the schools did a phenomenal job with their back-to-school programs. I met with the superintendent, and I also attended her State of the Schools lunch last week. And in the lunch, she had quite an extensive list of all of their accomplishments to make going back to school possible. For instance, they began to plan for multiple back-to-school scenarios in March of 2020. They formed a COVID planning team, which included administrators, teachers, and parents. They had approximately 25 meetings with teachers for planning and input. They surveyed parents and they surveyed teachers. They had to redesign how they do schools. They developed a model reentry plan, and the communications have been benchmarked by other school districts throughout the country. They also launched a 32-page return to school plan in July. All of the teachers, thank you.
As a parent of a student that graduated in 2020, COVID hit, obviously, my daughter a lot. Her senior year wasn't what she thought it was going to be, but Noblesville schools even handled graduation and having a parade and having events that or memorable for those kids. So that part of how Noblesville schools handled COVID, I think was fabulous. This year, I don't know that I would change anything. It's when I talk to parents, I think they're very happy with the way things have been handled. I agree with Stephanie. I think that, getting all the kids back to in-person learning at 100% is really hopefully the goal in the future if it's possible.
We talk about a lot of issues as a school district, but during a pandemic, you realize the value of fantastic, devoted leadership, fantastic, devoted teachers and students who have all done whatever they needed to do to make sure that we got to stay in school. And I want to take an opportunity to thank Carl Johnson and the board for their leadership. This is a $2,000 a year stipend. You go to a lot of meetings, a lot, aside from your normal job, your normal family. And they sacrificed so much time away from their family so that we could have a better short-term future and a better long-term future for our staff and students. So Carl, thank you very much to you and the board.
Right. Leigh, you'll lead question number 5 for us. In addition to the COVID-19, school safety has been a heightened focus for Noblesville. Do you support the current plans and programs to ensure the safety of our students and faculty? What, if anything, would you change?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I do support them. In talking with Heather Hendrick about the school policies and seeing it firsthand in my children's schools, I think that the blend of the physical and the emotional and the mental policies and practices that we have in place is what's working. Noblesville really cares for its whole student. They care for their physical well-being, and the implementations that have taken place with door barriers and ALICE trainings, as heartbreaking as those are as a parent to watch happen, they do reinforce a sense of security. But they only work when they're in conjunction with the mental health professionals and the school counselors and the SROs. So thanks to our Noblesville Police Department for placing police officers in our school. And I've witnessed them firsthand. They greet each child. They get to know them. They have a personal relationship. And all of these people in this community are focusing on making sure they can identify when there are issues and get ahead of them. So I think we're getting a lot of things right. The only thing that I would address, not really change, is ensuring that the budget is there. This budget was passed with referendum dollars, so we just need to make sure that we have the budget long-term. Thank you.
I wholeheartedly support everything we're doing. I think it's important to realize, and we've had these discussions with our safety director as well as the chief of police, there are reactive measures and there's proactive measures. And the community gets very excited, sometimes in not such a great way, when we talk about the reactive measures, things that would need to be reacted to in a building. But those are just as important as the proactive measures, things that keep things out. Our partnership with our law enforcement, as you said, Leigh, it is second to none. And we have had officers from other surrounding districts around the country reach out to us and say, how are you doing this? This isn't even happening in our school. So we're very proud of that. The other thing, in talking with the chief of police that we've discussed, is there's been a shift in the police department. This is actually a sought-after position for SROs now. It used to be kind of, I want to be on the beat, and now they're realizing that there's a lot of great stuff that happens in our schools. And the really important piece of this is it's teaching our kids to reach out to those officers for help, not to be afraid of them, that they are allies and partners. And that's a great thing to teach kids at a young age, especially it pays dividends later on in high school.
So mental health and school safety is very personal to me. My son was actually in 7th grade on May 25th and on the same team where the school shooting happened. Shortly after that, I joined a group of concerned citizens and parents that worked for increased school security and mental health measures. One of those, the relationship with Noblesville Police Department is stellar, and having SROs in our schools is amazing. not only for the safety, but also for establishing great relationships between our children and our police officers. Another one of the great things that I advocated for and research was the vapor wake dogs that we have in our schools. There was a lot of talk about, do we need metal detectors, and what would that, what kind of issues would that cause when kids are lined up trying to get through those metal detectors for safety? And vapor wake dogs, I think, are amazing because they're able to produce a deterrent, but also they're friendly and the kids love seeing them, and they potentially keep dangerous firearms out of our schools. Thank you.
Since May of 2018, Noblesville Schools has implemented over 50 specific measures. One of those that's been mentioned tonight is the SROs, the school resource officers. And I talked with Police Chief John Mann today, and he was telling me a little bit more about the SROs. They definitely get involved with the students. In fact, they have developed a program that's not used by any other school district in the area. It's a program called Project Truth. And this is to teach kids about bullying, internet usage, vaping, gun safety, etc. This program replaces DARE, which was a drug rehabilitation program. So hats off to the SROs in the school and the good job they're doing with the students. Thank you.
I think that Noblesville Schools has done a fabulous job with safety. As everyone has said, the relationship that the schools have with the city and have the SROs in each building is fabulous. Another example of how the city and the schools can build a wonderful partnership in many, many ways. So I guess to Carl's point, it's good to be proactive and not reactive, and I think that that's what Noblesville Schools needs to continue and be proactive.
Absolutely. I think our district is doing a fine job in promoting mental health and safety initiatives. I'd like to see an even greater focus on the mental health of our students. In working with our students for the past 10 years, they have so many more concerns than even I had or my parents had back in the 80s. There are so many forces that are at play for students now with social media, bullying, and worrying about, what we're going to wear to school and who's more popular and who has the bigger house. That's all part of a mental health initiative that we have to continue to strengthen. I've really enjoyed Mayor Jensen's Mental Health Mondays with Kristen Boyce, who is a licensed therapist in our community. And the biggest thing that she advocates is time to breathe, taking some time to breathe. And we absolutely have to give our teachers and students a little bit more time to breathe.
I'll never forget that call we got in May 2018 about what happened at West Middle School. We had just moved here. We have 3 young sons, now 3, 5, and 7. Hey, boys. But none of our sons were in Noblesville schools at the time. And my wife and I already were questioning whether we're going to put our sons in Noblesville schools because we want them to feel safe. We want to feel like they are safe when they leave our site. They were our babies. They're precious to us. But Noblesville schools did such an amazing job of answering that call of that challenging moment. I think of implementing a process called CAPA that's used in a manufacturing environment called corrective action, preventative action, being proactive and reactive. We've taken a great corrective action in putting school resource officers in place, like Officer Zach from White River Elementary, who takes the time out to know my kids' names. We've done a great job of making sure we have a secure entry to our schools as well. And to continue forward, we want to implement a preventative action, taking the time out to tap into the resources of our counselors and mental health providers so they can help us find the root cause of what's compromising our students' safety at schools.
Thank you. Carl, you will lead us in question number 6. Our school funding has relied on referendums to support both capital and operating initiatives. What is your view on how Noblesville has used the referendum tool to meet the educational needs of our community?
Well, referendums are exciting topics for any school corporation, so we would rather not have to use them at all, but it's the funding mechanism we've been given by the state. I think Noblesville's done a pretty good job. We were actually one of the first districts, the first, to actually use that new policy when it was started. And, the goal has been, just recently with the last referendum, the teacher salaries as well as the health and safety aspects and the emotional well-being of our kids. It's important to realize that there's a timeout on the referendum. There's only so many years that those are good for. And as we've discussed, you have to be careful that you're not assigning those dollars for long-term purposes that can't be supported. But there is referendum weariness. We know communities struggle with that. And so I think as a school district, you have to be very careful and selective in how you use that tool. But it is definitely worth using. And we have to make sure that, number one, topic is that we communicate with the community. Let them know what's happening, be transparent about that so they can have input.
Stephanie?
So no one likes increased taxes, including me. I think that is unfortunate if we ever have to have a tax rate increase. However, I do believe in a tax increase and a referendum for our schools. Because of the 1% property tax rate caps, the amount of funding that we get from the state is drastically reduced, and therefore referendums have basically become a way of life. Since 2009, the schools have lost over $46 million because of the property tax rate caps. So I think the return on the investment of a referendum is huge. My husband and I moved to Noblesville because of the schools. I think bringing in more families and more members to our community, that is going to increase property values. It's going to bring more economic development to our community and just make our city thrive. Thanks.
The referendum that was passed in 2016, as you know, was a $50 million referendum. And from that, $6.25 million per year will be used for an 8-year period. To give you an example of the breakdown of how some of that is spent, safety and security is $1.7 million. Mental health is $1.57, and teacher compensation, $2.93 million. So I think as a board member, you have to look at every aspect to make sure that it's being spent wisely and to try to find cuts whenever you can find a cut in other expenses. Thank you.
Nobody likes to have increased taxes, as Stephanie said, but with a referendum, I think it's important that you realize that it's done for the good of the community, it's done for the good of the students, and if there's another way to obviously fund without a referendum, that's great, but if not, I think you have to have a referendum.
I agree with the sentiments presented before me. As a real estate broker, one of the first questions that my buyers ask that are from out of town is, how are the schools? And obviously, we are also very concerned with property taxes, property values. We are starting to run out of options with a lack of funding. When there's no money there, our hands are tied. And so referendums are unfortunately a necessary evil, I guess you would call them, that we have to use because we're not going to change the state legislature overnight. We're not. We're not going to change their minds or magically influence legislation overnight. It should be noted that there are over 52 bills on the House floor that will be presented that affect education, and education funding, and we need to continue to support candidates who support public education.
I believe a school district is only as strong as its supporting community. I can't count how many teachers and people that we've talked to in the district who are spending their own time and funds within the classroom, outside of the classroom, helping students. This should be a community-based thing that we get together. We can all do this together, and if we have everyone involved, we all don't want to pay more taxes, I'm sure, right? I don't want to have to do that, but I'm more than willing to do that, and it sounds like the rest of these qualified candidates up here are more than willing to do that if we are seeing the benefit within our schools. And as Carl said as well, we have that transparency on the budget and where that allocation of funds are going. We're more than happy to do that, so I fully support that. Thank you.
I think that Stephanie said it best when she said that unfortunately referendums have become a way of life. It's true, the funding options are limited for schools. I support referendums when they're necessary, and I think that our community has rallied together when they're needed, most notably the most recent referendum, so we could have some school safety, unfortunately. But I think that to have a referendum, we need to have community understanding. And so what I want to bring to the board is the ability to communicate with the community and let them know why we need extra dollars, where it's being spent, how that is going to be invested in their children. Every child in Noblesville deserves a free and safe and welcoming school environment. That takes dollars. They deserve the best teachers. We have them. To retain them, we need dollars. It's the reality. We need to get creative, like I said before. We need to reach out to our business community. We need our community to rally around and understand the importance of a well-rounded public education system. My family moved to Noblesville because of the schools and because of the life that we could build here. Thank you.
And question number 7, we will start with Stephanie. Stephanie Lambert. What do you see as the role of a school board member in relationship to the community?
So being on the school board means that you are a servant leader. I think it's very important that you are a good listener, that you can be easily accessible to all members of our community, whether that's with email or your phone number. Transparency is just incredibly important, and that line of communication needs to be open. Everyone needs to be able to feel like they will have a voice and that their issues and things that they are concerned about matter. Everyone in our community has different needs. Every child in our schools have different needs, and everyone is going to be coming to the school board to make sure that their children's needs are met. And I feel like I will be able to do that. I think there are always two sides to every story, and it's just important to be a really good listener.
And I think that the board is the bridge between the school and the community. I think that it's important to hear all the voices, to be available to attend school functions, PTO meetings, sporting events even, to show the school community that you are there and that you are available to them. So I think it's giving parents a voice, giving the community a voice. So that's what I think. Thanks.
I think as a school board member, you need to listen. You need to listen to people in the community, different types of people, different ages, and take those opinions back. But I think also the school board needs to hold the schools accountable. The schools needs to be run like a business. It's the largest employer in Hamilton County. So I think that the school board really has two roles, and those are the two.
Great. Well, the school board has a variety of roles, but the main roles are checks and balances for our funding. We hire and review a superintendent. We review vendor contracts as well as the teacher contract. And my favorite part is we are supposed to be the biggest cheerleaders for our district. And there was a question on one of the questionnaires that we were given that asked how we would continue to support student achievement. And I think that school board recognitions are awesome when students do something great. But we need to continue to be engaged community members and be at the state title games, be at that big performance for our students. And I think just showing up for our people is the biggest thing that we can do in our community.
So I'll say this time and time again, our board should serve as a bridge, like Laura was saying, between Noblesville, the community, and Noblesville, the school district. And I'll say this time and time again as well, the school district is only as strong as its supporting community. So we want to implement certain community-sponsored events for our teachers and district employees to make sure we continue that effort. As Evan was saying, we want to support our students and our teachers. And we also want to have, formal forums such as this where we invite everyone in for the transparency. And at the same time, we want those informal gatherings and forums to be able to build those bonds and relationships in the community so we can have those tough conversations and make those tough decisions together. Thank you.
So I agree, school board member needs to be a role model. We need to set the tone for what's acceptable in our community. And yes, we need to be a cheerleader. But what I'm committed to being is representing your interests and asking the tough questions and making sure the work gets done. There's only going to be a handful of us on the board, and that's the yeoman's work. I am committed to working tirelessly to ask the right questions, to challenge our leaders. I think that, us overseeing the superintendent is a critical role, not taking anything at face value, but doing our due diligence and ensuring that we have the answers so that way we can be informed and we can be accountable to you. So that's what I think the board needs to be. We need to be a role model and a cheerleader, but we also need to do the yeoman's work and really put in the long hours for you and for our kids and for our teachers. Thank you.
It's a great question because a lot of people don't understand what school board members do. They think we're an extension of the administration in a lot of ways. Our number one role is governance. And the first thing we do is we hire a superintendent. Once that's done, then we step back and we're an evaluated body. It's our job to make sure that we are setting the mission and the vision for the schools, and then we hold the superintendent and the teaching body accountable for that. We also are responsible for being that filter for the public comments that come into the school. Many times you'll hear the superintendent say, "You're my eyes and ears. I can't be everywhere at once. What are you hearing?" We each reach out to different people in our own little circles of influence. So we bring that to the school board, and it helps provide a more well-rounded interpretation of what's happening in the community. And then you just cannot underestimate celebrating our children. I can walk into a building and say something, and Joe Schmo can walk into the building. If I say something, it's a megaphone, okay? And that can be used for good or bad. We need to make sure that we are celebrating our students and teachers in the best way we possibly can.
All right, thank you. And we will circle back to Laura for question number 8. When asked to make a decision about something you may know little about, how do you approach that decision?
Research. That's when you contact experts that would be in that particular area. Do research online, but just really dig in and get to know a subject matter and be prepared. So tonight, I came prepared. Thank you.
Christi?
I think you listen and you talk to people. You talk to people that are in the community, you talk to people that are experts, you talk to people that have an opinion that aren't experts. You listen, you gather data.
I think some of the strongest pulse can be gained from our students. Even tonight, we continue to talk so much about students rather than with students. And I've had the opportunity to be in the classroom with those students and hear some of their thoughts and perspectives. They know what's going on in our district. They'll be able to tell you what the feel is that they're getting. And we have fantastic, qualified, degreed experts in our classrooms and at the very top of our district cabinet. We need to continue to ask questions of the people that we have right here in our district, because those are the people that are going to continue to move our community forward. And I would invite anyone for transparency, questions, anything like that. You can call or text me, and here's my number, 317-903-8036, and I'm a real estate agent, so I will not be phased in the slightest.
Asking questions goes a long way. I'm a scientist by trade. I have a degree in biology, and I work as an automation engineer, robotics engineer, and a project manager for a company. I've worked with cancer medications and trying to come up with medications that don't have side effects for cancer patients. I wrote the order of operation for one of the kit manufacturers for the COVID-19 testing. So I've had to ask these tough questions. You're going in, you have no idea what you're dealing with when you're going into some of these laboratories. So you ask questions, you ask the right people, and you continue to ask, and you continue to ask, and you continue to ask until you get all great minds in the room. You ask the expert here, you ask the expert there, and you get the best qualified answer when you get in that room. So continue to ask questions and expect answers, and ask a diverse group of people, diverse thought, diverse minds, and come up with the best possible answer. Thank you.
I've learned over my career that you ask why 7 times, and you get a generic answer the first time. Then you ask again, but why? But why? But why? And you start to drill down and you get to the nut of what is really causing the issue. You start to get truth. People wear down and they start to tear down the boundaries that they've put up. You also seek out diverse opinions. I have learned, I actually went to school and got my degree in journalism and was a reporter for a number of years. You can't take anything at face value. If everyone is telling you the same thing, you're missing something. And that stuck with me my entire career. I'm missing a voice. I'm missing somebody who doesn't fit into this demographic, into this group. We are missing student voices in this. Who does this affect? We have to consider the whole and understand who gets to make the decisions, who's going to affect it, and who's paying for it. So I ask why over and over until I can explain it to a 5-year-old.
So one of the aspects of being a servant leader is that you listen before you speak. My mother always used to tell me, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, listen twice as much as you speak. We've all heard that. It's one of the reasons why we do surveys. It's one of the reasons why we reach out. You hear the superintendent talk about this a lot. And it's data that comes back that you don't have. Reaching out to the people that are affected by your decisions. So one of the best things you can do in any leadership position is look at the situation from the people that are affected by the decision you're about to make. It could change your perspective. And has anyone made the decision before you? We do this a lot with neighboring school districts, even outside. Have they gone there before us? You don't always have to plow new ground. Sometimes there are people that have already done the research for you. They've done the heavy lifting. You can come along with a different perspective, maybe use something that they've done. Partnership is a great tool, especially when you're making decisions that affect such a large people.
So I am a very inquisitive person by nature. Maybe sometimes I ask too many questions. Like in graduate school, at the end of a lecture, I would always raise my hand and I could hear the entire room sigh because we were going to be staying a little longer with all of my questions. So by nature, I'm an inquisitive person. I have no problem asking hard questions. I have no problem having conversations that are difficult in a civil way. I think it's important to read. I think it's important to do research and talk to people and experts and have meetings. Some of the other panel members also mentioned talking to people with different viewpoints than your own. And also, once you make a decision, you have to think about, or before you make a decision, you have to think about unintended results that may occur from that decision. So something may seem crystal clear from the outset, but when you dive deeper, you might realize that there might be some unintended consequences. So I think that's also important in the decision-making process. Thanks.
Right. Thank you, everyone. That is our questions that were predetermined. We do have a few public questions that have come in. So we will continue the rotation as we go through, and Christi will be first on the public questions that have come in. I will read them kind of word for word here to make sure that we capture the intent of the question. You have all shown you are qualified and have the best interest of Noblesville schools in mind, but do you have time in addition to your own work and families to devote to this position?
That's a really good question. I guess I can answer that I'm an empty nester, so that frees up some time for me. I am involved in several boards, and my husband and I are small business owners, but this is really important to me, and I do have the time to serve on the school board.
Evan?
Great. Well, it's kind of a blessing, I guess I would say, that I am able to devote so much time to the school board. Being a real estate broker, that does allow me a little bit of flexibility, having a team able to go out in the field for me as well. And I'm 29, and I'm not married yet, and I don't have any kids of my own yet. My kids have been the 400 at Noblesville High School that I've been pleased to work with. But that does allow me a lot of time, especially late at night, to work through issues and answer the 3 a.m. call if it is ever needed.
So when I first moved to Noblesville, I worked as an automation engineer covering a territory. And during that time, I wanted to lend whatever experiences I could to the community. So I volunteered and coached in NEFL and NYB over at Dillon Park and the Field of Dreams, that magical place. And within the last year and a half, I took a new position as a project manager so I could spend more time to invest in the community. So I definitely have that time, and I intentionally did take a new role in my career so I can invest as much as I possibly can in our community.
Yes, absolutely. I am a mother, and I have a full-time career. And if nothing, I know how to multitask and prioritize like any good mom. I have, throughout my 15-year career, maintained a commitment to community service. I have routinely served as a board president or board member on numerous organizations. I am currently not serving on one because I chose to take this endeavor. This is where my heart and my time will be spent. The most awesome part about this process is that I've been able to take my kids along with it. This has been a family effort. This has been a concerted effort, like I'm sure others, with my husband, making that choice that this will be a priority. I understand it'll take late nights. It'll take random phone calls, I'm sure Carl can attest. But I also have the backing of my boss and my company. So yes.
So you've probably heard the mantra, want something done, ask a busy person. And the reason they do that is because we schedule things, right? We work it in. As school board members, it will take whatever you want to give it. And when you think you've given it everything, it'll ask for more. So you do have to set parameters. And you are right, it is a family thing. I often tell people, your spouse has to be on board with this because there's going to be times when you can't share things. There's going to be times when you have to leave late at but you do the things that are a priority to you. And all of us up here share this as a priority. We also, I have to laugh, it's a great question because so many times I tell people, they just think it's a 9-to-5 gig and, you know, when the superintendent goes home or teachers go home, it's done. And you're right, you could get a question early in the morning, late in the evening. Things happen and they don't care what time it is. But it is definitely a great question to ask because it will take a lot of time.
So I think that having time to commit to being a school board member is actually a very practical question to ask. I have been informed that before school board meetings, there's a lot of research and reading that goes into that. I am currently a stay-at-home mom who does a lot of volunteer work, but I would definitely have the time to be able to commit to the school board. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like I am able to run for the school board, because I do have that time. I also think that when you're really passionate about something and you truly care about something, you make time for it, like a lot of the people up here have already said. So thank you.
So as a small business owner, I've been able to work from home since 2004. A few years ago, I decided to cut back on my work commitment so that I could spend more time doing community volunteering and activities, also spending time with grandkids. But I'm on the board of a Noblesville women's organization, and I'm also participating in another club whereby I prepare for speakers and events, etc. But yes, I would definitely have time to participate on the school board.
Thank you. Evan, we'll let you lead off with this one. Another question from the public. To what extent do each of you support the Red for Ed movement?
I think if we didn't support teachers, we'd be crazy. Unfortunately, it has taken a red T-shirt worn by a number of teachers to get our state body to understand that there is a very large voice that is still waiting to be heard. And just with this past referendum, it was our teachers' first raise in at least over 10 years, according to my recollection. We need to continue to support our teachers, and if that means wearing a red T-shirt, then I would proudly wear one, because we need to continue to invest in our educators and make sure that our students know that we're committing our resources to making sure that they have the best teachers.
I support the Red for Ed movement. We need to make sure our teachers have every distraction removed away before they get to the classroom with our students. If they're worrying about the things of financial worries at home, or worrying about what's going to come next because they don't feel supported and they've spent late nights and spent their own money, how can we honestly say that we are supporting our teachers? Subsequently, our students suffer if we don't support our teachers, because they have things in the back of their mind and they're not able to get those distractions out of the way. This is really important, and we should definitely support this as a whole and as a community in Noblesville. Thank you.
I wholeheartedly support the Red for Ed initiative. I think that the failings of our society keep falling to teachers to fix. We keep piling more onto their plate. We demand more out of our curriculum. We demand more out of them. I've said it numerous times tonight. I have 3 kids, and I see the timestamps on the teachers' emails, the timestamps now when they grade their materials. It is so impressive. And then every time I email them and I have a question, I get a response. I get an offer to have a meeting. And I'm one of sometimes 30, sometimes 50 parents. But their emails and their grading come in at 2 a.m., midnight, 6 a.m., during the school day. So yes, what can we do to support them? Teacher retention is the #1 priority. That is the product of the schools. Thank you.
Yes, the idea of the Red for Ed movement was born out of the fact that teachers just did not feel that they were respected and supported. Financially, culturally, they're just not seen as equals, as professionals. And one of the things I like to tell, we discussed this with the Teachers Forum, friends of mine that are teachers, I come from a family of educators, teachers are essential. And I think we have all realized that to the nth degree right now with everything that's going on. Our society does not function without teachers. Remove them from that equation and things fall apart very quickly. And as was said here, supporting our teachers means supporting our kids, and everybody wants to support what our kids are doing. That movement has done more for our teachers' level of respect.
So in general, I think that teachers are underpaid and underappreciated. I am very glad that the referendum passed and that their salaries are now comparable to surrounding districts. I had a conversation with a teacher in one of the elementary schools the other day who said that the referendum was life-changing for her. She's married to a teacher, and now they are able to go out to dinner. So I find that remarkable, the amount of hours that teachers invest in our kids, and they are not able to go out to dinner because it is an expensive thing. I think that advocating at the State House and teachers using their voice is important. They have the right to do that. And it's also, I've been an advocate for teachers way before I decided to run for school board, and I think that's why I was endorsed by the teachers. I think they have seen my commitment to helping them also by being a sub in the schools. I think my time has been well spent helping them and making sure that I am trying to contribute to their job being easier. Thanks.
I think our teachers are the front line in our community with our students. They've had to manipulate through COVID-19, and they've had to relearn how to teach students in the classroom and online. They're essential to the community. I think that the community realizes this and is supportive of our teachers. You can see that in the passing of a $50 million referendum. So I think we need to solidify our connection with the schools and the community to help maintain a high level of educators in our schools. Thank you.
I do support the Red for Ed. My daughter Maya is going to be a special education teacher. She's a freshman at Butler. So teaching is something that's very important to our family because she is going to be a teacher. I think that it's important that we invest in our teachers because it invests in our kids and our kids' futures.
Thank you. We do have a few additional questions from the public. Again, those will be on noblesvillechamber.com. That'll be the hub for everything. So those questions will be passed along to the candidates so that they have an opportunity to respond as well if they'd like to individually. We've filled our time with the questions. We'd like to give all of the candidates an opportunity for a minute and a half for a closing statement. You're welcome not to use all of that if you'd like. You've all done a fantastic job of being efficient and on time, and I appreciate that. But we will start again with our closing statements. Let's just start with Willie, kind of where we finished with the last question, and we'll go back around the room.
I just first want to take the time to thank the Chamber, thank the Teachers Forum for their endorsement as well. I can't say this enough how much my family and I love Noblesville. I want to be able to contribute everything that I have to this community. I've attended as a child Department of Defense schools in South Carolina, in Okinawa, Japan. I've attended public school in Hawaii and South Carolina and Pennsylvania, and I've attended private school in Hawaii. As an adult, I've supported and volunteered in school systems in North Carolina and South Carolina and Tennessee and Kentucky. Noblesville, by far, has the best functioning school district, by far. And I want to be able to tap into all of our resources, take all of our talents in our community, and invest them into our school district. It's really important. I really appreciate your time. I would appreciate your vote, and thank you so much. Go Millers.
Leigh?
I echo Willie and thank you, Chamber. Thank all of you for coming, and thank you out there watching, either live or recording. I have been very moved and humbled by the efforts that our community have taken to assess this panel of candidates. I have received phone calls from community members. I have received emails, Facebook messages. This is an important election. This board serves a critical role in our school. And I'm motivated to serve because I believe that education is the greatest equalizer. It is what allows every child, no matter their background, to realize their fullest potential. And every child deserves that opportunity. My role as a board member will be to listen to all voices. As a school board member, I will ensure that we have a financially solvent budget so we can do all the amazing things that we want to do and teachers deserve from us. I will be a voice for those teachers. I will be an advocate for our students, and I will represent each and every one of you. I will make myself available for comments, for input, and I will seek information and fact before making any decision. Thank you.
Carl, if I can interrupt for 1 second, sorry. I want to make sure that we've got 9 candidates, we've got 3 positions, and I want to make sure that we're clear as a chamber on who everybody's names are that go with the face and the voice that they've been listening to all night. So I missed it when we first started our closing statements. I wanted to make sure that I read the full name again as we went through that. So Willie Haile was our first closing comment. Leigh Hamer was our next closing comment, and Carl Johnson will be our next one.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to leave you with this thought. The position we seek is just as much about service as it is leadership. 2 sides of the same coin, and you need both to function well. It's a unique gift to serve in this city, in this role. We are blessed with strong leaders with unwavering commitment to our kids. It can be a challenging and demanding role. I'm not going to lie to you. There are times you feel the full weight, public dissent, misunderstanding, even fear. But there's other times when the pride and the accomplishment and the reward are just unparalleled. Position requires the best of your mind, your heart, and your soul, all 3. A few defining moments just to illustrate that. Light bulb going off for a middle schooler when I'm teaching and talking about career days. Walking the halls of our schools, first day back after May 25th. Teachers and students are tearfully and silently saying thank you as we walk by. Students' invitations to speak at baccalaureate. Putting together teacher phonics kits with my daughter when the volunteers were lost to COVID. Dancing and games with preschoolers at our school board meetings. Yes, you can have fun at school board meetings. Waitresses walking up to us at restaurants and thanking us for their kids being able to go back to school. Lunch with a police officer. He says to me, I can't believe what you're doing here. Our community doesn't do this where I came from. Veteran teachers in store aisles that stop us and say thank you for the referendum. Parent social media post. Thank you for shouting out my kid's name at the graduation parade. It meant the world to her. There are so many aspects of this that affect your life on so many levels. It's just been an honor to serve these past 4 years, and I look forward to doing it again for your vote. Thank you very much.
Stephanie Lambert.
Thank you so much for everyone that's watching at home and for those that came tonight to get to know all of the candidates, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event. I'm running for Noblesville School Board because I am passionate about our kids, our schools, and our community. Being a member of the school board means being a servant leader who is able to collaborate, listen, problem solve, ask hard questions, and communicate by finding common ground. My vision for Noblesville schools is that every child leaves their senior year with a plan for success, a sense of belonging, and that they feel supported by our community. Every school district has problems and issues. Noblesville is not immune from bad things happening, but the distinction is how we, as a district, handle those problems. I think our schools do a great job at overcoming obstacles and that our most difficult moments have made us stronger. I want to continue our successes by being a member of Noblesville School Board, and I would appreciate your vote on November 3rd. Thanks.
Laura Alerding.
I am interested in serving on the Noblesville School Board to help bridge communications between schools and parents and the community at large. I believe with better communication, the community can be better aware of budgets and the cost to actually run a school district. Whether or not we currently have children in school, we are a community, and school education affects the future of the city for all of us. And I would like to be part of the school board and would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Christi Crosser.
Thanks to everyone for coming. Thanks to everyone that's listening. Thank you for the Chamber for hosting. I would like to thank my family and my friends for the support that they've given me so far. I would also like to thank Mayor Chris Jensen for his endorsement. I would like to wish all the other candidates good luck. Noblesville schools are a big part of our community, and I love this community, thus my desire to serve on the board. So I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Evan Elliott.
Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone at home and everyone that made it tonight on this rather dreary fall evening. Thank you for braving the weather. Being a Miller doesn't end at graduation, and our students need to hear that. I've worked with so many students throughout the years. I've heard all of their perspectives. All students from different races, socioeconomic backgrounds, thoughts, opinions, and they're missing a voice on our board. I am proud to be a Miller. I'm proud to be endorsed by fellow Miller, Mayor Chris Jensen, and I cannot tell you what an honor it is to be endorsed by all 9 of the city councilors who sit in these seats on a regular basis. Those were all individual endorsements from them as parents, as community volunteers. The people and teachers who know me best know that I have nothing but your students' and teachers' interests at heart, and I thank you for your vote.
Right, that brings us to our close. I would like to personally say thank you to all of the candidates for making my job very easy. Everyone stayed on time and was very civil, so we appreciate that. We want to thank the city of Noblesville for allowing us to use the venue here. We want to thank Hamilton County Television for giving us the streaming support that we've got provided. The Noblesville Chamber, again, is your hub for all of the activity involved with tonight's event. We will have the links there. We'll have the candidate videos there. So please make sure that you go and check that out. We want to thank the public, the people that are here in person. We have a good crowd here. We want to thank all of those that are watching it live. We want to thank all of those that will be watching it streaming later on. It's important that we all get educated on what the options are and we understand those options when we go to the voting booth, and we're not just randomly picking, oh, that name sounds good, let's go with that one. So I appreciate everyone taking the time to understand who the candidates are, what their stance is, and making your selection based on those stance. With that note, early voting is going on now. Will be going on through Monday, November the 2nd. You can vote at the Hamilton County Judicial Center here on the square, or you can vote at the Hamilton County Fairgrounds, again, through November the 2nd. And Election Day, as we all know, is Tuesday, November the 3rd. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone here. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I appreciate it. Thanks, Bob.